So as all of you know, I made a video about why I believe evil karma makes sense for the first Infamous game, and holy shit, it's my most popular video on my channel. Thank you so much for that. Truly, I appreciate it. I got a comment not too long ago on part 3 of my Infamous 2 playthrough asking if I'd make a video about karma in regards to the second game. Initially, I wasn't gonna do it because I figured everything was covered in the main video, then I thought, fuck it, I'm a man of the people, so why not? I'll see if I can manage it. As covered in my first video, I believe being evil in Infamous 1 makes more sense than being good. The reason is because Cole shrugged off the blast from the ray sphere. He'd been in a coma for 4 days, not 2 weeks like I said in the first video, since the explosion, and while expanding his powers, he had seen just how much Zeke and Trish were struggling throughout the quarantine. Right out of the gate, he decides to look out for them by way of firing into the crowd to keep the food for themselves. As his powers keep expanding from this point, he believes he's untouchable. But he's not a total psychopath. He uses his powers for selfish reasons, i.e. looking out only for himself and those he holds close, but he's not beyond safe. He continues being evil all the way up until Trish gets killed by Kessler, and by the time you get to the mission end of the road, Cole decides to try and redeem himself for his past mistakes. He has a moment of clarity since Trish's final words to him were that she was disappointed in him. This, coupled with the fact that he's constantly referred to as the quote-unquote demon of Empire City / the demon / the devil, all throughout the storyline of Infamous 2, and him having a moment in the comics where he has a total mental breakdown after everything he dealt with, along with having to fight a monster conduit that's on a warpath aiming to kill him because it thinks he's Kessler, which, you know, technically he is, just much younger. With all this in mind, I'm gonna go over reasons I believe good karma makes more sense in Infamous 2 as opposed to being evil, and touch on the comic series that bridges the gap between the first 2 games. I'm not covering post-blast, I literally just found out that actually exists. I'll be going about this video the same way I did the first, explaining my opinion from one perspective, either from the story or real life, and then following it up with the other, while ignoring the optional side missions and focusing primarily on the main storyline. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. Prior to the events of Infamous 2, the comics take place just after Cole defeats Kessler. He tells Zeke about Kessler's real identity. Kessler was really Cole himself from the future who came back to help him gain enough power to defeat the Beast, a monster hell-bent on destroying humanity, while still harboring a grudge towards Zeke for his betrayal that led to Trish getting killed. The comics show Cole assisting the police and Warden Harms of Eagle Point Penitentiary where Alden was originally held, while also showing more of Moya's backstory. She was in contact with Kessler and the First Sons the entire time since the blast, and now her new objective is to capture Cole. These tests ultimately backfire, and a monster conduit that Kessler had been experimenting on breaks out and starts terrorizing the civilians still trapped within the quarantine zone, with the sole intention of bringing down Kessler. Since Cole and Kessler are effectively the same person, the monster goes after Cole, attacking him and everyone within the immediate vicinity. After dispatching the monster the first time around, with the help of Moya and her troops, Cole demands the keys to Zeke's apartment, saying he needs time alone. After arriving, he has a complete mental breakdown over everything that had happened, especially with having lost Trish. While asleep, he has a dream about Kessler, showing the ruins of the world and where he buried his children, before Kessler eventually tells him more about the Beast and how he needs to ignore the path of graves that the future holds, regardless of whose bones that they hold. Eventually, Moya and her troops gas Cole with hallucinogenic smoke, and he's ultimately captured and taken to a ship. Sasha, having been captured prior to be drained of her hallucinogenic powers to use on Cole, breaks out of her own containment and helps free him. After escaping from the ship, Cole meets up with the Warden and Zeke, who were aiming to help break Cole out, only to be interrupted by the monster once more. Deciding that he was done walking away, Cole fights the monster for the final time and brings it down. Moya, having completely gone against the military, finds Cole using his ion storm to finish off the monster and threatens Cole, telling him that with a single call, he'll have a bounty on his head so large that even his own parents would sell him out. The ship starts sinking, Moya gets trapped, and despite Cole attempting to help her, she tells him to leave because the water would kill him, leading to Moya going down with the ship. After a few days, while talking to Zeke, Cole gets a call from none other than Lucy Quo, who had worked with John White, leading to the events of the second game. In Infamous 2, you reintroduce to Cole McGrath. He goes through his backstory explaining how he became the conduit we all know and love, and recapping all of the events that led to the start of Infamous 2. With a totally different voice actor at that, but moving on. And not just any voice actor. This is the same motherfucker that voiced Ellis in Left 4 Dead 2. I literally just found this out. This is mind-blowing.
Yeah!
We end up being introduced to a new character, NSA agent Lucy Quo, and Zeke makes his appearance. The three discuss what they're gonna do in New Marais until they get interrupted by the Beast, just as Kessler had foretold. Cole, now believing he's powerful enough, jumps off the boat and goes toe-to-toe with the Beast. After seemingly defeating him, he falls back to the boat with Zeke and Quo, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. The Beast rises back out of the water, gets the better of Cole, and breaks his powers, forcing them to quickly retreat to New Marais. Waking up on the water, Cole goes on to say that regardless of the cost, he's going to get his powers back and then some to bring down the Beast, and he quickly goes to work with Zeke. They get off the coast of New Marais, only for Cole to have to go in alone in order to clear out the militia blockade. As Cole continues, he happens upon a bridge that he needs to charge up in order to lower it, and we're hit with the first karma choice. Charge the power supply up enough to lower the bridge, or overcharge it to cause an explosion and clear out the militia as well as the civilians within. Here, from a story perspective, I believe it makes more sense to just charge the bridge as opposed to blowing it up, because Cole has already been through enough with his actions in Empire City, with Trish having been killed as a result. He has a chance at a clean slate when it comes to defeating the Beast, and after having been through enough, I feel he would just charge it up enough and take down the militia on his own. Seeing what Kessler was trying to accomplish, there's a good chance that Cole would likely have vowed to keep himself from becoming just like his future counterpart and find another way to take down the Beast.
I'm disappointed, Cole. The Ray Sphere was the catalyst of your powers, and it could have strengthened you even more, but you rejected it. I, for one, wouldn't have done the same thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not like you. It took me a while, but I finally realized that this isn't about me, about what I want. Not anymore. It's about keeping this city safe. And once you're dead, no one will ever threaten it again.
From a real-life perspective, after losing the one you love and now having to be the savior of humanity, why would you add more headache on top of this already difficult task? You're already dealing with a group of organized hicks who think they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, to whomever they want. It's better to focus fire on the main enemy while gaining bragging rights in the process, especially after seeing what happens when you full send it in the opposite direction. Not to mention the fact you've seen a future version of yourself who completely fucked up and became completely corrupted on the ambition of being powerful enough to take down this monster. Almost everyone with some sense of morality would do what it takes to avoid becoming the power-hungry monster that is their supposed future selves and think more in the long term rather than the present moment. Moving further down the story, we get introduced to Nyx, who is basically New Marais' version of Sasha from the first game. And it would also appear that the devs had taken my point about goth girls seriously because, well, I mean, look at Nyx, and then look at Sasha. Point proven. Moving on. Somewhat similar to her Infamous 1 counterpart, she tries to entice Cole into doing evil shit. Quo gets kidnapped by the militia after they'd rescue Dr. Wolf, who dies in the ensuing car crash after a chase with them. In the mission Torn, a plan between Cole, Zeke, and Nyx is in the works to rescue Quo from the militia. They have the option of either freeing cops being held hostage and paraded around in a convoy, and using them to break in the militia camp, or filling up a streetcar with explosives and sending it through the gates, burning anyone caught in the area alive. From the story perspective, I believe Cole would save the cops due to not wanting any unnecessary casualties. With Cole's Demon of Empire City reputation still being known throughout New Marais, especially by Bertrand, he wouldn't want to create more of a headache than he already has with the militia by way of turning the entire public against him. As with the first choice, he'd start thinking more tactically, once again going further and further with his vow to keep from becoming just like Kessler in an effort to redeem himself in the public eye, even despite Nyx saying that they should worry more about themselves than the public. From a real-life perspective, it makes more sense to take the road less traveled because of the fact that you're seeking redemption. Redeeming yourself, especially with the public, is never an easy task, nor does it really allow for shortcuts. Not to mention the fact that, as we've seen with the entirety of New Marais, it's easy for the public to be swayed towards dictatorship if they're given the illusion of safety. It takes more than just brute force to turn the public eye in your favor if they're so deeply entrenched in the values being bestowed upon them, as is evident with the constant TV broadcast calling Cole the quote-unquote devil and saying that conduits are deviants in order to justify the actions of the militia. Continuing through the story, after saving Quo and her conduit gene having been awakened, she enlists Cole's help in controlling her powers for the benefit of helping fight the militia, questioning her worth since she's now a deviant. Later, Nyx takes Cole on a boat ride through the bayou, killing monsters and militia along the way. At the end of the mission, she shows Cole a little slice of Empire City. As it turns out, Bertrand forced Dr. Wolf to create another race sphere and gathered up a bunch of other people, including Nyx's mother, that he had imprisoned in effort to gain powers of his own. He activates the device, and both he and Nyx were caught in the blast, which is how Nyx had gotten her napalm ability. This was all shown to Cole in an effort to get him to understand her deep hatred for both the militia and Bertrand. After all this, we get to the next big choice. During the mission Transferring Power, the team discusses ways to break into Fort Philippe in an effort to destroy the device that the militia had Quo hooked up to that had awakened her conduit gene. Cole is given the option of either winning over LaRoche and his rebels by stealing medicine, or having Nyx dress up as a militia goon, wreak havoc on the rebels, and have Cole stop her in an effort to make the rebels dependent on Cole. Story-wise, it makes more sense to win people over purely on the fact that the rebels already hate Bertrand and the militia, but Bertrand still has power over them due to sheer numbers. Cole is the only real equalizer that could turn the odds in their favor, and it's reasonable to say that he would only even out the odds if the rebels weren't in good shape, and would be less so if he decided to sick Nyx on. With the plague moving further down the East Coast, in addition to the Beast, the rebels would need all the help they can get, both medically and otherwise, if they want to stand a chance against the militia due to the militia's strength in numbers alone. From a real-life view, thinking logically, you're gonna need numbers as well as supplies to stand a chance against any kind of organized military force. This is evident historically all throughout humankind. People aren't machines. We need any kind of supplies if we're gonna be in good shape to fight. Anger alone isn't enough to stand a chance against an army, and disguising yourself and going on a killing spree against the very people you're trying to win over is just plain counterintuitive to the end goal if you're preparing for a major battle. The next choice, after taking the fort, is choosing between Quo and Nyx for transferring power. Let's be real here, Quo's ice powers are more useful than Nyx's napalm power, especially since we don't get them on the same level as Nyx. Ice launch for the win! After Cole wakes up from that, he fights a huge monster known as the Behemoth that's rampaging through the streets. Taking the monster down, he alone discovers that the monster was none other than Bertrand himself. Cole chases after him through Floodtown, facing off against other ice conduits that had broken out of the same prison Quo was being held. While in Floodtown, Bertrand makes his appearance, showing how he creates the corrupted from the average person he pulls off the streets. And you're faced with another karma choice after the mission Rail Yard Intel. Expose Bertrand for being the very thing he calls a deviant, or help Nyx tame some of the monsters Bertrand had created. From the story perspective, it makes more sense for Cole to sneak through the camp and expose Bertrand because he'd already seen firsthand that Bertrand himself was a conduit. Exposing him as a total hypocrite pays off more in the long run, this being the final spark that sets off the dynamite that had already been laid prior. The city needs to be shown who they'd put their trust into and how they were misguided into believing that the militia were their guardians against conduits, while having a conduit leading them and claiming their actions were justified. Adding the fact that said conduit leader was spewing hatred towards other conduits at the same time. Not to mention, nobody truly knows how trustworthy these monsters really can be and whether or not they'll turn on you in the end. Gathering more of the very things that are being sicked on innocent people is probably the worst decision that could possibly be made. Flipping this towards real life, it's infinitely more therapeutic to expose someone for their hypocrisy when they believe they're untouchable. After dealing enough damage to their reputation already, putting the final nail in the coffin of a hypocrite by way of exposing them to the very people who gave them power pays off more in the long run than doing something as small as getting something that they already have or can make more of. The only surefire way to hit someone with a holier-than-thou complex where it hurts is by proving that they're no better than the common person in society. It's better to bring someone down slowly and even out the odds completely than simply go toe-to-toe with them right out of the gate. As we near the end of the story, Cole continues to mess up Bertrand's operations, and the Beast draws closer to New Marais. Zeke, due to his undercover operations in the militia, manages to get his hands on a nuke with the intention of Cole firing it at the Beast while it's outside New Marais. This, however, doesn't work, and the beast just eats the missile entirely, but Numeray is spared for the time being. While powering up the gasworks, he gets trapped by Bertrand, who attempts to convince him to join forces with the militia to defend Numeray against the beast. Failing to come to an agreement, he leaves Cole to an apparent death by firing squad until Zeke shows up and thwarts his plans, saving Cole's life. Afterwards, the two make amends with each other, with Cole admitting that he'd been treating Zeke like shit, to which the latter simply shrugs it off and saying that he betrayed him back in Empire City and to just forget about it, while also telling Cole that he doesn't just call him brother because he likes the way it sounds. Cole, having gone back to hunting blast cores, later finds out the reason behind the ice conduit's existence. Bertrand created them as super soldiers to sell off to the highest bidder on the black market. After he finds the next blast core, Cole prevents the transport of the force conduits by destroying the ships they're meant to be sent out on, and finds out who the beast really is. None other than Agent John White. John shows Cole that what he's doing isn't actually mass murder, but rather acting as a walking race sphere, leading Cole to a plague ward and having him find the lone dormant conduit with the power John had given him to detect the plague. There, John reveals that conduits, even those that are dormant, are the only ones that can still survive the plague. Being left with this information, Cole returns his attention to Bertrand, and during the mission Demons, Bertrand attempts to justify his actions by saying the conduits need to be purged as they're not part of the so-called divine plan, aiming to kickstart a genocide. Cole counteracts this with the fact,
See, that's where you're wrong, Bertrand. Conduits aren't monsters. No. See, powers don't kill people. Oh no. It's the person behind the powers that kill people.
with the help of the rebels, Cole, Nix, Quo, Zeke, and LaRoche join forces once again to take down Bertrand once and for all. After doing so, Cole goes for the final blast core, defeating the ice conduits once again, and during a meeting with Zeke, Nix, and Quo, reveals to the others that the beast is actually John White, and lets them know that he's not aiming to kill humanity, but activate conduits to survive the plague. Nix, furious that John had killed her pets, tells Cole that John needs to die. Quo, on the other hand, says that what John's doing is the right thing. Despite what the game tells you, that being you need to switch your karmic alignments to change which ending you want, you're left with the final choice. Fulfill your destiny, save humanity, and use the RFI as intended, or betray humanity and join forces with John. Now, here's where I deviate slightly from the idea of the video. Both these endings are valid, but they kinda suck in their own way. Don't get me wrong, I love the choice of Cole either sacrificing himself to save humanity, or turning his back and embracing the fact that he's different, but these endings both, in a way, are a catch-22 situation. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. In one ending, Cole lays down his life and the lives of other conduits to save humanity, but in the other ending, Cole becomes the beast and kills the homie Zeke in the process. However, I'm still going to tell you what I believe is the right call. From a story perspective, it makes sense that Cole would lay down his life and save humanity from the beast. The reason this is the case is because, as mentioned earlier, Cole would likely have made a vow to himself to not become what Kessler was: power hungry. The entire goal was to bring down the beast in the first place in order to save the world. Cole, having seen what happens when you're overcome with a desire for power, and having learned from his mistakes in Empire City, wouldn't deviate from his plan to bring down the beast and sacrifice the lives of many for the lives of a few. Not to mention, his own best friend is one of many infected with the plague. Having learned this, he'd be more enticed to lay down his life, and the lives of others that he doesn't even know, in order for Zeke to live. And although Kessler caused all this major heartache for him, Cole would avoid being just like him. Although at the end of the day, Kessler had the right end goal. Also adding the fact that Cole siding with John would mean turning his back on the very people he'd won over, proving that he's no better than Bertrand. From a real life perspective, you don't even know how many people are going to survive if you join forces with John. It would be total chaos upon the world. Literally. With how many people ended up dying. Not to mention the fact that you don't know what any random person who you just met has planned with their newfound abilities. Activating a single random conduit could very well have major consequences. And who's to say that a group of recently activated conduits wouldn't just start destroying what's left of the world? Also, you've just worked endlessly to try to redeem yourself, winning over the very people who had originally hated you for what you did when you'd first gotten your powers. It does involve the fact that you're laying down your life to save them, which would be enough to make anyone second guess their original plan. But millions of lives are on the line. It's not easy to be good, and takes a conscious effort to do so. But if you've come that far to right your wrongs, it oftentimes is better to just see it through than run screaming in the other direction when shit gets deep. And having come to realize that things aren't about you, it's only right to see it through and save lives in the process. Just about anyone would be scared shitless if their own life was on the line. And it's reasonable to say that the ending of Infamous 2 could really go either way. Except for canon because, you know, second son. But anyways, nobody wants to die. But it's the only thing guaranteed about life. We're all gonna die sometime. It's just a matter of when it happens. Cole sacrificing himself to save humanity is the best thing he could possibly do because it effectively means that he's doing the very thing Kessler was too weak and later power hungry to do. He didn't marry Trish or have children, no, but he fought the beast, brought it down, and saved the world, fully changing his ways in the process. That single promise he'd likely have made to himself would be the only thing he counted on to keep him going, aside from the support of Zeke. Instead of becoming power hungry like his future self, he found another way to fulfill his destiny, and saved millions of people in the process. Rather than staying a villain like he was in Empire City, he changed his ways and became a hero. This, to me, is why I believe it's better to be good in the second game than evil. Cole had everything come crumbling down back in Empire City when Trish was killed in his newfound desire for power. He'd bulldoze over the average man to get what he wanted, when he wanted, only to have the one he loved say that she was ashamed of who he turned into, despite the fact that he, in his own mind, was trying to look out for her and his best friend. After bringing down the one responsible and being shown the reason he'd done so, Cole would have worked tirelessly to mend the damage he caused, both with Zeke and the public. And it started with him destroying the Ray Sphere before fighting Kessler. In that moment, just like he said to Kessler, he's nowhere near the same man he was speaking to, and that it's not about what he wants, but rather about keeping people safe. He would go on to prove he's changed by helping the people of New Marais, getting rid of the militia, and bringing down the beast once and for all, removing himself from his Demon of Empire City moniker entirely and becoming the newly appointed patron saint of New Marais. Thank you for watching. My original plan, like I said before, wasn't to do anything like this because I figured it would have been covered in the first video, but I decided to do it after being asked about it in the comments of one of my more recent videos. So once again, huge shout out to this guy for that idea. Also, I want to give a huge thanks to all of you, once again, for making that video my most popular one on the channel, as well as for the subs. I started off with not even double digits, and now I'm at almost 20 subscribers. Yeah, future me here, I've broken 20 subscribers already, so once again, thank you. So genuinely, thank you so much for the support. With the Demon of Empire City playthrough at a close, let me know what all you'd like to see next. I do have ideas for what I'll upload in the future, like old footage of my playthroughs of the Life is Strange series that I haven't fully finished editing as of yet. And it's because I have a great idea for a video relating to it that I might finally put together. And it's on a topic that's incredibly personal for me. As always, be sure to drop a like and even subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. With that said, take care of yourselves. I say again, Sucker Punch, for fuck's sake, give us more Infamous, damn it!